What
Big
up?
homie, big homie.
Welcome everybody to the next episode 3 of the Big Homie Podcast with my boy Dorson Boyce. Today, is a very cool episode, and I really appreciate him coming on as the first guest. We're gonna try to entertain y'all for the day, right?
Right, right.
Um, but just starting off, as always, I want to give you guys a motivational quote. So here it goes. Every defeat, every heartbreak, every loss contains its own seed, its own lesson on how to improve your performance the next time. That quote was by Malcolm X. I hope you guys like that quote. So let's get right into it, Dorson. So, I got a couple questions for you, man.
Got
So,
you.
tell us a little bit about yourself and, where you're from.
Uh, Born and raised in New York. Born in Brooklyn. I was raised in Queens. When I went away to college, I left at 18. I'm currently in San Diego now.
Okay. How you get introduced to football, man?
Uh, Honestly, that was that was part of my childhood, right?
Mm,
Coming outside, right? I think in the community that I grew up in and I was immersed in, it
mm.
was sports, entertainment, and then you had the guys that was doing the other things, right? So the guys that I hung out with, man, it was just basketball, football, and yeah, man, that was pretty much my ticket out. At least at that particular point in time, that's what I thought it was, right? I
Yeah,
thought that was the only way I was going to make it out of the situation I was in, right?
yeah, that's fair. What what was your college experience like, and did it prepare you for a corporate environment?
Uh, my college experience was, to say the least, man. To say the least, it was filled with a bunch of highs and lows, man. It was filled
Mm,
with highs and lows. So, I'll go into depth, right? Um,
mhm,
Anybody who knows anything about the the football world and circuit knows that the JC route is not the ideal route, right? So the JC route is the route that I had to take for those of you who don't know what a JC is. It's a junior college. It's a 2 year school. Coming out of high school, grades weren't the best, right? So I took the JC route, and I think my time there, man, I had a lot of time to grow. I had a lot of time to reflect, a lot of time to develop.
mm,
Um, um, I turned the corner. I turned the corner. My roommate and one of my best friends was murdered. So he was shot. He was shot and killed at a party. And I think once that happened for me, it kind of put things in perspective, right? Um, it was like you really can't take things for granted, right? So I was living in the moment, but I was going through the motions as well, right? Like I was there.
yeah,
I had a plan, but I wasn't executing the plan. I was just happy to be away from home. Once that happened, man, I kind of shifted gears. He actually had a full ride to a Division 1 school, and he was planning on leaving in 2 weeks. So that when that happened, man, it was definitely tough. So um, that experience there, man, just prepared me for Division 1, right? So by the
mm,
time I got to my D1 school, man, I was already mentally tough, right?
right.
Being an inner city guy from Queens, um, I was already tough, man. I was already mentally tough, but that whole experience just prepared me for the next level. I think I spoke with you about this some time back, man.
Hmm.
Playing sports and football, man. It's levels to it, right? And each level, I feel like prepares you for the next, right? It prepares you for the future. So, um, yeah, man. My time at my JC Allen Hancock
Mm,
was definitely a time where I grew up, I developed, and gain some mental toughness.
Yeah, man. So, uh, with that, as you made that transition, you went to the from that JUCO to that Division One, um, and then getting to the NFL, man. When did you learn that the NFL was a business, right? Because most people, because I'm a fan, right?
Right, right,
So I look at it for entertainment,
right,
and for a long time I didn't see it as a business either, right? I'm just
right,
looking at it like, oh man, this is cool. But when did
right.
you notice, it became a business?
Honestly, I'm gonna tell you this. I knew it was a business once I got cut, and I
Oh,
got
okay.
cut right, right. So I'm gonna tell you this. I got cut 2 weeks into camp. If you know, you know, right? You know, you getting cut 2 weeks into camp. When you have time to reflect, man, it's usually something is telling you, I may want to choose a different career, right? I was signed as a undrafted free agent by the Seahawks in 2011. My second week in the camp, man, and I got cut. I didn't know why, right? I was distraught. So I went home. I had time to reflect. I got a call the very next day. Um, Seattle wanted to re-sign me. I didn't understand it, right? I was confused. I said, well, damn. I just got cut, and then I got signed the next day.
Mm.
I went to practice, and Pete Carroll, he was making a joke of it. He was like, "Hey, Boyce, how'd you like your day off?" Right. So to those guys, it was funny. To me, it
Right,
was like,
right.
I didn't find nothing. Right, right, right. So um, later on, I found out why I was cut. Right, and
Mm,
it kind of put things in perspective. Right. So when it comes to football, and especially camp, man, so this is a numbers game, right? You got guys that that's gonna make the roster. You got guys that's fighting for a spot, and then you got guys is as bad as it sounds. They're just bodies for camp, right?
mm,
At that point in time, on the roster was three fullbacks, offensive lineman got hurt. We needed to sign an offensive lineman. Teams don't really need three fullbacks. One had to go. The
mm,
one the one was me. So, um, just being able to identify like, okay, well, it's a business, right? I'm gonna be the one to get the short end of the stick. The team
mm,
obviously is gonna do what they need to do to make sure that they're prepared for these games. So they signed the offensive lineman, the fullback got cut. I got signed the very next day. I came back, and the running back coach at the time was Sherman Smith, and
okay.
he came up, and he always says something, and it stuck with me, and he says, at the end of the day, when you guys come into this room and you guys step on the field and you with your teammates, man, you want to do some extraordinary things, right? Extraordinary things, right? um, you want to leave an impression, you want to leave an impact on everybody that you come in contact with, right? So, when I got re-signed, he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, man, I just want to let you know you left an impact on the entire room." I was lost. He said, "Hey, man, when you got cut, these guys found out, and Marshawn went to Pete and was like,
Mm,
hey, he was lobbying, going to bat, like, hey, at the end of the day, it's a lot of guys that don't deserve to be here. That guy's not one of them. So
mm.
I appreciated that. Got signed back. Through the rest of camp, Marshawn Lynch was low key, man, so my mentor, right? Coming in
Oh,
and watching film,
wow.
coaching me up. So yeah, man, that whole experience was definitely, you know, it was a teaching and learning moment, right? That's when I knew, like, hey, this is a business, right? So
Okay, man, that makes total sense, man. So, with Marshawn kind of take you under the wing to give you the game and knowledge that he has, right?
right,
Um, do you feel like it made a difference, right? If you didn't that have that mentorship, you know
right,
what I mean? Like, did it
right.
make a big difference for you?
It did. And I'm gonna tell you why. So I mean, at the end of the day, when you playing ball and you've been playing ball your entire life, you got that it factor. You got that
Mm,
swag. Like you usually know that you're the guy.
mm.
By the time I got to the league, I was transitioning from another position. I was a tight end. I was a tight end my
Oh,
entire life, right? So from the time I was 7, 8 years old to the time I was 23, I was a tight end. Once I
mm,
got to the league, I was converted to a fullback. I knew with my stature and frame, I wasn't
mhm.
going to be a tight end in the league. So me coming in being a fullback, and at the end of the day, I got the confidence, but me getting that stamp from a guy
Right.
that was, he was already established, he was already the guy. So, me speaking with him and him pulling me to the side and telling me like, yo, bro, like, yo, you nice, right? It for me it was validation. Like, okay, it's my time, and it's go time. So yeah, man. So that was definitely a huge impact, huge.
Man, that's so cool, man. So what do you think you learned in the NFL, right? As far as the corporate environment, kind of going back into that, which helping you transition to to aerospace, right?
Right.
Like how did that kind of help you? You think?
Um, I don't think I don't think the NFL necessarily prepared me for corporate America, right? I would give
Okay.
more credit to the sport of football, right? And I,
Mm,
I say that, and I want to piggyback on what I said earlier, right? It's levels, right? So as you're playing, you're going through high school, you're going through college, you get to the league. I've been playing since I was 7. It's different. It's going to be different at each level. I feel like you coming in, me personally, I jumped into the game late, right? I already had a different career that I put tens and thousands of hours in. Didn't
right.
have any uh, trade skills. The other skill set that I had was minimal as far as hands-on skills, right? Um,
Mhm.
um, so I'm coming into the game late. Uh, uh, the things that I learned from the sport of football were the things that I hang my hat on, right? That I still hang my
Mm,
hat on to this day, right? And those are the things that really can't be taught, right? It's either in you or it's not, right? The discipline, the ability to work under pressure, work
mhm.
ethic, the ability to collaborate, build team cohesion. Those are the things that I hang my hat on, that I learned from the sport of football. So at the end of the day, it wasn't the NFL that taught me those things. It was the sport. By the time I got to the NFL, those attributes and the things that I learned from so many years of putting in the hours and time, and I was ready. I was ready and groomed. So by the time I got there, I was able to, you know, play.
Yeah, man, that makes total sense. Because like going back, man, thinking about that, and thinking about my life journey as well, right?
Right,
I feel like some similarities of just trying to make it out of where we from. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
right,
I totally understand that. But one thing that I wanted to ask you, man,
right,
was like that first game. You know what I'm saying? That first
right,
game that you got to put the pads on and go out there and knew you was gonna play, right? Like, what did that feel like?
right. Butterflies. But I'm gonna tell you this: it was a surreal moment, and it's
Mm.
crazy. I had the same feeling when I played in college as well. When I
Oh
jumped
wow.
from JUCO to Division 1, my first college game was on ESPN at night. It was at eight
Oh
o'clock at
wow.
night, prime time, and we played against LSU. And I seen the helmets, and I seen the guys, and I seen 75,000 fans. Now, guys told me before I went out on the field, like, hey, I'm telling you, by the time you get out here, it's gonna be something. And I hear him, yeah, I hear. And
Yeah.
by the time I got out there, I was, wide eyed. I was like it was an experience. Like, whoa, couldn't I'm yelling, I couldn't hear anything, right? So
Mhm.
I think for the NFL, it was a full circle moment, bro. Because
Mhm.
I mean, You've been putting in so much time, and I don't think people like fully understand, right? And I
Mhm.
think we spoke about this last night, right? When I
Mhm.
when I um when I referenced my son, and
Right.
he's into sports, and he's saying, he wants to, be a professional player,
Mm.
right? And one of the things that he has, on his side is that he has a guy that knows what it takes, that lives in the same household, right? And
Yep.
I tell him, I said, hey man, like, the work you putting in now, it ain't good enough. It ain't
Mm.
good enough, man. And I only say that to say the amount of time I put in from a young age, even to an adult, man. I'm talking about thousands and tens and thousands of hours of practicing a craft, and you finally reach the pinnacle. I don't care if
Mhm.
it was for one game. For me, that was a full circle moment. Even when I got the call on draft day, right? Um, that a team wanted to sign me, right? It was I cried, right? It was
Mhm.
just being able to recognize the work that you put in, and it's some people would say, right? Um, I forget what that quote was. I think it was a Martin Luther King quote, right? Where it's like, um, what's the quote said? It's
What it's pertaining to?
it's pertaining to steps, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
meaning
I
at the
know
end of
what
the
you.
day, you gotta climb, and I'm gonna paraphrase it. You gotta climb
Yeah,
up the staircase, even though you can't see the next step, right? So you just
yeah.
take the steps, right? And I think that's the toughest thing. You're working towards a goal, and you're working towards something, and you don't know if you're gonna ever reach that, right? You got hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands of kids that play football every day,
Yep.
high
That's a
school,
great point.
and they yes, man. They put in hours and hours and hours in the league, right? They never get to reach, that level. So I think, man, that's the toughest thing. Toughest thing, just putting in the time in into something that you love, man. And for me, I was lucky enough to really get that experience, and um, I'll cherish that, man.
Yeah, that's pretty dope, man. Because that's one thing, through mentorship that I talk to uh people about, right?
Right,
Is like the society's funnel, right?
right,
Like you
right.
said, everybody can start across the board at the start line, but as you progress, it's only some people gonna fall off from discipline wise,
Well,
then it's about opportunities too, right?
and not to cut you off, Sid, but I'm gonna piggyback off what you just said, because at the end of the
Hmm.
day, and I said this in our previous uh, podcast, right?
Yeah.
Mentorship, in corporate America is important, especially for a guy like myself, right? So as I just said, right, you got a guy that's been, you know, developing a skill his entire life, and when that time is over,
Hmm.
it's tough, and I think for me, I found myself in a dark place, right?
Hmm.
And I think a lot of former athletes, it's the same thing.
Right.
When that time is done, and you hang up those cleats, you feel like your identity is stripped. You don't
Mm.
know nothing else. I didn't know anything. And I'm right now. I'm being real vulnerable. I didn't have a skill. I didn't have a trade. For me, it was just football. I didn't have
Mm.
interpersonal skills. I didn't have my soft skills weren't developed. Um, Obviously, growing up as a kid, I was a person who stuttered, right? So even speaking and having the conversations, at least the conversation that I'm having now is it's a 360, is day and night, right? So when people that I grew up with even see this, they'll be like, wow, right? It's day and night. But having a mentor to guide you through, you know, through the levels, right? So
Mm.
just like I said, man, in corporate America, you coming in, right? So I came in and I'm starting at the bottom. I don't know what to expect. I've never been in those rooms. I've never been in a tough situation to where, hey, questions are being asked, and I need to be on it,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't got
Mm-hmm.
a person that can help you navigate through it, man, you'll find yourself, you know, a lot of self doubt will kick in, right? Like, well,
Mm-hmm.
damn, man, so am I really good enough to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Am I good enough to do this? And I think a lot of athletes, when that time comes, man, it's a lot of self doubt. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
granted, you got some guys that just love the sport. They love the sport. So when their time is done, they're gonna coach. They're gonna be a
Mm-hmm.
scout. They're gonna be around the game or involved with the game in some capacity. But a lot of the guys, want to step out of the box, step out of their frame, step out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
But the self doubt comes in, and these guys aren't sure if they're able to, excel or if they're good enough, right? So, and you know, I just say, man, uh, uh, I give you a lot of credit. I give you a lot of credit for my development just within this short amount of time, right? Um, Within this past year, right? So at the end of the day, I was going through a point or a phase in my life where I was going through the motions. I never forget that call. I'm going through it, and at the end of
Yeah.
the day, like you know the things that you accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
You got the confidence, but at the end of the day, one of the things I said to you is that I never want to live off my past, right? I don't want
Right.
people
Yep.
to identify me as a football player or ex NFL player. Like
Mm-hmm.
that bothers me, right? So at the end of the day, the average NFL career is 3.3 years, bro. If I live
Mm-hmm.
to it, if I live to I'm 80, right? If you got an hourglass and you turn that upside down, that's just a small fraction of my life, man.
Yeah.
So if
That's a
I'm not
great point.
making if I'm not making an impact, doing something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being viewed as just a athlete and a football player, man, I really didn't do enough, right? So
Right.
since that conversation that we had
Mm-hmm.
and the talks that we had, we pulled me aside like, hey, bro, like, man, so you that guy, right? Those are the things that I think some of us need, because, man, so
Yeah.
as I said, at times, man, you jumping into a totally new space, right?
Yep.
And I think the self doubt, it's human nature, the self doubt to kick in there, but
Yeah. I totally understand that. Not to cut you off, Dorson,
right,
but
right,
like I totally understand that. Because I want to top this with another kind of question, right? Because for people they might not really understand, right? So I'm gonna give them a scenario real quick on what you mean, and you can tell me if it's correct or not,
right,
right? Or at least what
right,
I'm getting from it. So basically, it's like going overseas, right? Going to a foreign land, you don't understand the language. You used to people, but it's just a whole nother language that's happening. You
right,
know, you've been staying in America your whole life, so this is what you know. This is
right,
what you practice, right?
right,
And then you go overseas, or we go overseas, right? And now I don't understand the language. I don't know what
right,
these people talking about. They got different slang,
right,
but we
right,
still humans. You know what I mean?
right.
At the
And
end
I
of the,
I I agree. So that I agree. Now you're overseas, you're in a different country, right?
Mhm.
How do you feel? How would you feel if you're in, let's say you're in, because I've lived in France, right? So I've lived in
Mhm.
France for about a year. So let's say you're in France and you need to maneuver, you need to speak, you need to really get involved with what's going on, and you don't know anybody. You don't know anybody. You want to get some food, and it's like, oh, huh? You looking like a dead in headlights, right? Now imagine if you befriend a person. His French is solid, his English is solid. I guarantee you, your transition to move into France is going
Mhm.
to be a lot easier, right? And it's
Right.
no difference than it's no difference from having a mentor, right? That
Mhm.
person is just an extension. That person is just there to help you navigate, right? And at the end
Mhm.
of the day, man, so as I said, and I keep harping on it, you jump into situations and people that have more experience, with certain things that I it's always great to pick their brain, right? It's always
Mhm.
good to ask their opinions, right? Because if you not learning from someone else's successes and failures,
Mm.
you may get to the situation and it's like,
Yep.
well, it's new, right? So
Mhm.
for an example, right, you have an interview and I'll give you a call, Sid, man, so I got an interview, bro, this, that, and the third. How should I go about it? Oh man, listen, bro. Boom, boom, boom. Attack it like this. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, cool. Now I go in the interview. I'm already got my mind right. I'm already kind of knowing like, hey, not what to expect, but you got the
Right.
confidence of, being able to control a room, right? So that's,
Mhm.
those are the things that, valuable.
Right.
Yeah, man.
So with that being said, Dorson, like, what advice would you give a player that's starting to trying to transition into corporate America or just trying to transition into society now? Because, like you said, an average football career is 3.3, right? Everybody
Hmm.
can't be Tom Brady, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Everybody can't have like these long careers. So like, what would you um give as advice, because you then already went on the other side of the hill, right, and see
Right.
what was going on down there.
Right.
So the people that's coming over, man, like what would you tell another athlete that want to transition,
I would tell them that you're good enough, right?
mm,
That it's just that simple, So as I said, once you're done, um, it's a lot of self doubt. I'm pretty sure, it's a lot of people are well aware of the mental health that athletes go through, and I mean and that's just not for athletes, that's everyone,
right,
right? But
yeah,
uh, as I said, when your career is over and it's something that you've been doing since you were yay high, and you feel like your identity is stripped. So I would just tell them like you're good enough. At the end of the day, those skills that you don't have, those things could be taught and learned, right?
mm-hmm,
Um, the things that people can't teach are the attributes that you develop over the years, right? And that's the discipline. That's the ability to work under pressure. That's the
mm-hmm,
ability to work, through deadlines and be able to collaborate, right? So the attributes that you developed over 20 plus years, those are the attributes that you hang your hat on when you transition to corporate America. And 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you that's going to be good enough. One of the things that I see a lot is, you jump into companies and people have the technical skills, great. And as I said, those skills, you can learn those skills, right? You can
right,
go to school, it's YouTube, you can learn those things, right? But at the end of the day, especially in our line of work, right, where we're trying to do some amazing things, right? We're trying to change the world, right? It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of
mm-hmm,
pressure, right? You got winners and losers, and
mm-hmm,
we all know what winners do, right?
right,
Winners
yeah,
get it done, right?
yeah,
So I mean, at the end of the day, and when I say about get it done, it's by any means, right? It's
mm-hmm,
going above and beyond, and that's the conversation that always plays in my mind from Sherman Smith. Whenever you come into a situation, you want to have an impact. You want
mm-hmm,
you don't want to be an ordinary guy. You want to be extraordinary, right? So,
mm-hmm,
guys, it's felt when you're not there, and it's felt when you are there, right? If and I hope that don't go over your head, right? So,
mm-hmm,
that's one thing that I definitely would just say to the future, athletes that's looking to transition into corporate America, that's looking to jump into the aerospace field, man. You're good enough, and those skills that you don't have right now, that'll come with time. Just the attributes that you've developed over 20 plus years. That's what you're gonna hang your hat on, and that's what's really gonna blow these executives away. Because at the end of the day, man, so like I said, and you know this, and you tell me all the time, it comes down to the guy that can execute. If you
mm-hmm,
got a plan, execute it. And I think as a football player, you even a basketball player, all sports, right?
mm-hmm,
But let's talk about football. When you come up to the line, the average play is 4 seconds long.
mm-hmm,
In order for you to get a first down, in order for you to get a touchdown, you got to execute. So every play in your mind is execute. That's all you know is like, hey, this is what the plan is. It's time to execute. And the team that executes the most, the team that executes the best, wins the game. Wins the game. We don't play football, as kids, you know, into our adulthoods to lose. We play to win the game. We play to win the game. We play to execute. So,
Mhm.
with that being said, man, yeah, I hope that answers your question for sure.
Yeah, it did, man. And like I said, man, I really appreciate you coming on. If you want to give, any mentors or anybody you want a shout out, man,
Right,
you can,
right. Well,
but
look, man, I'm gonna tell you, man. One, I definitely got to shout the big homie out because, man, it's like I
I
said,
appreciate you.
it's for me. I'm still very raw, right? So
Mhm.
it's I'm learning every day. I'm learning every day, man. So one of the things that I I learned recently is that when you're in these rooms, you gotta be a sharp, and it's no
Mhm.
different from the field. Corporate
Mhm.
America is no different. It's competitive, right? So got to be a shark. Want to give a shout out to Marshawn. I want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine as well, Darrell Young. So Darrell was a teammate of mine with the Redskins. He's the director of player development for the Steelers now. Man, he also played a big part in me going back to school. So want to give him a shout out. So, but yeah, man, I appreciate you for having me, bro, and hopefully, man, a year
Yeah,
from
we
now
do
we
this
look
again.
back and you know
Yeah, man, we definitely after our 1 year anniversary, we gonna look back at this, man, and look at back at all the episodes, But thanks, man, for coming on, being the first guest. Um,
appreciate you.
big homie audience. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Um, we'll be taking off for the holiday break and coming into the new year. We got a lot of big episodes coming up, and I hope y'all enjoy it. We're gonna hit the ground running for 2023, and like I said, I hope y'all enjoyed the episode.
Big
Peace.
homie.